सही समय है विचारों का मैदान। बोल दिखाओ अपनी भाषा में, सब है तैयार। राइट और रॉन्ग में क्या डिफरेंस है, दे दो अपना ज्ञान। Let everyone around you know what it's time for. यही समय है, सही समय है विचारों का मैदान। बोल दिखाओ अपनी भाषा में, सब है तैयार। राइट और रॉन्ग में क्या डिफरेंस है, दे दो अपना ज्ञान। Let everyone around you know what it's time for. सही समय है, सही समय है।
Before they start the debate, I think let me first do the job of introducing you to the topic. India is the largest democracy in the world, and our democratic values are enshrined in our constitution. The democratic government in India is based on liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice. The Indian democracy strikingly makes a balance between the rule of the majority and protecting the interests of the minority. India's democracy has been thriving under the composite culture that we have in our great nation. But at the same time, there are also certain other battles that we are facing, like casteism, political violence, poverty, gender discrimination, etc. With this, I would like to introduce today's topic, which is the Indian democracy has strengthened in the past decade. Can I please request our student participants, debaters, to join me on stage as we take the debate forward? Can we have the team going for the motion? Ishak and Anushika. And the team going against the motion, Gangaram and Khushang, can you please join us on stage? Participants, please take your seats. So let me tell you a little bit about the format of the debate today. The debate is going to have 3 segments. In the first segment, each speaker is going to be making their opening submissions for 2 minutes each. In the second segment of the debate, we are going to be having the rebuttals and the sur-rebuttals. In the third segment of the debate, we will be having the question and answer with the moderator and the final concluding stances given by the teams. Are we clear on the format? Super. So with that, let's move to the first segment of the debate. Inviting the first speaker, Ishak, if we could have you take the podium and to make your opening submissions.
In a world where nations rise and fall like ocean tides, where sovereigns succumb to despotic ruthless rights of autocracy, there stands the Bharat, a beacon of democracy's radiant glow. Bharat is the land where the democracy is born. Namaste, my dear citizens of Bharat. I would like to put forth my argument for the motion to you and the people who are sitting in the opposition team. So, once the human society was ruled by, despotic sovereign autocracy offered nothing to humanity. It gave the power to the one person, and there is no freedom to none. And after the bloody struggle, the democracy is born with the right to liberty, equality, fraternity, and the pursuit of happiness to every individual. And it is believed that democracy is the last word in the framework of government in the democracy. So we are being the largest democracy in the world, with ever biggest written constitution, which is crafted by a most visionary person like Ambedkar, whose sole purpose was to eradicate inequality and racial discrimination. So, Bharat is always rooted in the democracy in ancient time, where the people in the contemporary Europe were just merely a nomads. We were practicing a democratical institution in our India. So, let's take the stance on the 6th to 4th century BCE. If you go through the Buddhist text of, Mahanirvana, it is evidently proven that while Buddha is passing away in Kushinagara, the message to that effect was sent to the people in the Mallas. Mallas were the tribe who had parties, practiced the republican form of government there. My dear ladies and gentlemen, if you look at the way that Cholas have governed, they had the very decentralized local governance level. Democracy is rooted in this country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ishaq, and especially for tracing the roots of democracy in India through our culture, tradition, and rich legacy. Over to the next speaker from the team going for the motion.
I would like to ask my audience, can you imagine a political structure giving immense power that a tea seller can run the nation and represent India globally? And a simple tribal woman and a former teacher can become the president of the country. Well, my dear audience, that is democracy. In a world that often grapples with authoritarianism and tyranny, Bharat's democracy that brings forth inclusivity, essence of miraculous cultures and unity, has defied the odds, uniting a diverse nation of over 1 billion people under a single democratic umbrella. Substantially, apart from democracy, other government models like authoritarianism, autocracy, and communism does nothing but limit political freedom, civil liberties, and can lack individual economic incentives. Well, now for people to say, लोकतंत्र भ्रष्ट है, कमजोर है, बिका हुआ है, तो उनके लिए मेरा जवाब ये है, लोकतंत्र भ्रष्ट नहीं है, भ्रष्ट सत्ता की भूखी पार्टियां हैं और कमजोर लोकतंत्र नहीं है, वो नजरें हैं जो उसकी महानता को नहीं देख पाते और लोकतंत्र बिका नहीं हुआ है, बिके वो हैं जो चंद पैसों के लिए गलत पार्टियों को वोट करते हैं. सो मैं ये पूछती हूँ, अगर डेमोक्रेसी हमारे हाथों में दी गई है, इट रन्स बाय अस, देन आई वुड लाइक टू आस्क, इज द सिस्टम begged forward to or us people who are just running the democracy? I would like to ask that. And as far as we're concerned by the imbalances and flaws in government, we forget that India is the fastest growing economy and prominent leader in the world. I would like to conclude by saying the strongest message that Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji said to us: पार्टियां आएंगी, पार्टियां बिगड़ेंगी, and सत्ता आएगी, सत्ता जाएगी, पर ये देश चलना चाहिए और इसका लोकतंत्र अमर रहना चाहिए. जय हिंद, जय भारत.
Thank you so much, Anushika, and thank you for reminding us of our duty and responsibilities as responsible voters. With that, now let me invite the team going against the motion. Could we have the first speaker going against the motion to present the opening submissions? Over to you, Gangadhar.
नमस्ते, मैं आपको 1950 के दशक की ओर ले जाना चाहूँगा. भारत और चाइना साथ में आज़ाद हुए थे. उस समय हम दोनों देश गरीबी और पॉवर्टी जैसी समस्याओं को जूझ रहे थे. हमारे देश में भुखमरी फैली हुई थी. उस समय हमारे पास दो रास्ते थे. चाइना ने कम्युनिज्म को अपनाया, हमारे भारत देश ने डेमोक्रेसी को अपनाया. मगर इसका इम्पैक्ट क्या था, आप देखिए. आज चाइना दुनिया की सेकंड सुपर पावर बना बैठा है और आज हमारा भारत कहाँ पर है. प्रश्न ये उठता है कि आखिर भारत, क्या हमने देश के लिए सही निर्णय लिया था? क्या हमें चाइना जैसे ग्रो करने की अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं मिलनी चाहिए थी? कई दशकों पहले नोबेल लॉरेट केनेथ एरो ने एरो इम्पॉसिबिलिटी थ्योरम का कॉन्सेप्ट दिया था. तो मैं आपको बता देना चाहूँगा, हम जिन सिद्धांतों को फॉलो करके अपनी डेमोक्रेसी को मानते हैं, इनकी थ्योरम ये प्रूव कर देती है. बिना डेमोक्रेसी के 2018 में हार्वर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी के पॉलिटिकल साइंटिस्ट स्टीवन लेविस्की और डैनियल जबराज ने बुक लिखी है, हाउ डेमोक्रेसी डाई. इसने सारी दुनिया में बवाल खड़ा कर दिया गया. हर जगह प्रश्न उठने लगे, क्या डेमोक्रेसी वास्तव में एग्जिस्ट भी करती है? ग्लोबल सुपर पावर अमेरिका में 2016 में डोनाल्ड ट्रंप का प्रेसिडेंट के रूप में आना, 2018 में ब्राज़ील, हंगरी, फिलीपींस, पोलैंड आदि में पॉपुलिज्म आ गया है. क्या हम भी पॉपुलिज्म की ओर बढ़ रहे हैं? अगस्त 2023 में वर्ल्ड बैंक ने एडेड वैल्यू ऑफ लोकल डेमोक्रेसी पर एक रिसर्च प्रकाशित किया है. कर्नाटका पर एक एक्सपेरिमेंट किया गया और लोकल गवर्नेंस के डेमोक्रेसी पर पॉजिटिव इफेक्ट्स पाए गए हैं. हमें लोकल गवर्नेंस पर विचार करने की ज़रूरत है. भारत को सुपर पावर बनाने के लिए क्या हमें अपने देश के करंट डेमोक्रेसी मॉडल को फॉलो करने की ज़रूरत है? थैंक यू.
Thank you so much, Gangaram. Can we now have Kushang, the second speaker going against the motion, to present his opening submissions?
नमस्कार सभी को. क्या सड़कों को जाम करना ही असली डेमोक्रेसी है? इसकी वजह से दिल्ली की सड़कें जाम की गई. हमारे देश को इसका बहुत भुगतना पड़ा. एसोसिएशन ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी रिफॉर्म्स के मुताबिक हमारी संसद के अंदर जो एमपीज हैं, उनमें से 40% क्रिमिनल्स हैं और उनमें से 25% जिन पे सीवियर क्रिमिनल केसेस हैं. और ऐसे लोग हमारे देश की टॉप संस्थानों में बैठे और ऐसे क्या यही डेमोक्रेसी को चला सकते हैं? अगर हम इंडियन ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट इंडेक्स की माने तो केरल जो लिटरेसी रेट में सबसे ऊपर है, और उसके बाद हम बिहार को देखें जो सबसे नीचे है। क्या यही इक्वालिटी की डेमोक्रेसी बात करता है? सेपरेशन ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स, हमारी डेमोक्रेसी के 3 स्तंभ हैं, लेजिस्लेटिव, एग्जीक्यूटिव और जुडिशरी। जब हमारी लेजिस्लेचर कोई कानून बनाती संसद, उसको रोकने हमारा जुडिशरी सिस्टम आ जाता है। इसका मैं आपको उदाहरण देना चाहूंगा। किसान आंदोलन से सरकार ने देश के विकास के लिए 3 बिल पास किए थे। हमारे किसान सुप्रीम कोर्ट में चले गए, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बोल दिया कि आप इस पे स्टे लगाओगे, नहीं तो हम इस पे स्टे लगाएंगे। क्या ऐसे देश विकास कर पाएगा? 10-10 साल तक हमारी योजनाएं ऐसे ही रह जाती हैं। और केंद्र सरकार का और राज्य सरकारों का कैसा मिलन है ये हम बता सकते हैं। जब सरकार कोई योजना बनाती है तो अगर वो स्टेट के लेवल पे आती है, उसको एग्जीक्यूट करना होता है, तो हमारे स्टेट्स उसको एग्जीक्यूट नहीं कर पाते। जीएसटी का उदाहरण है। सरकार ने कहा कि हम सारे टैक्स हटा देंगे, एक टैक्स रखेंगे जीएसटी, और स्टेट्स गवर्नमेंट कहती है कि हम जीएसटी को नहीं मानेंगे क्योंकि ये हमारे लिए लागू नहीं होगा। इन्हीं वजह से हमारे देश में बहुत लंबा समय लगता है और डिसीजन नहीं लिए जाते। चाइना है, वहां पे 1 गवर्नमेंट 1 पॉलिसी है, जिस वजह से आज चाइना दूसरे नंबर की इकोनॉमी है। और मैं अपने शब्दों को विराम देने से पहले कहना चाहूंगा कि अगर भारत को चाइना जैसे देशों से टक्कर लेनी है या आपको विश्व गुरु बनाना है, क्या ये करंट डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम और जो करंट हमारे गवर्नेंस सिस्टम है, क्या हम उसको पूर्ण विचार करने की जरूरत है? आज का जैसे डिबेट का शीर्षक है, यही समय है, सही समय है, यही समय है देश के पॉलिसीज को बदलने का, उनमें रिफॉर्म्स लाने का। धन्यवाद।
Now I can see the energy of RishiHood. Very good. Very good. I think another round of applause for the speaker who just came here. Now with that, let's move to the exciting round of the debate, which is the rebuttals and sur-rebuttals, because what's a debate without the debaters taking each other's points head on? So let's invite the team going for the motion to put forth their rebuttals.
So, I just wanted to ask the opponent team here, if you are allowed in a public forum like this, in a public open area like this, you are allowed to express your opinion against the institution of government. Don't you think that is the government institution of democracy that provided you this privilege? Yeah. While the speaker on the opponent team was speaking, he was, comparing the China with India, with Bharat. So, this is totally a different situation here. Bharat and China, even though they got independence at the same time, the model which they adopt is single party ruling in the China. And we are, with this much diverse ethnic background in here, we are the successful 76 years of opportunity. We are successful democratic countries where each and every one's individual aspirations are fulfilled by the government, and public policies are made for the welfare of the people. And democracy itself is not the flaw. The people who are amending and using the democracy is the flaw. See, he was pointing about the superpower of Bharat becoming the superpower. I would like to say this, not one of the superpower, their superpower. And really Bharat is the Vishwa Guru of the world. Just look at the economic growth of our Bharat. In the emerging market, it is the leader of the emerging market. GDP is expected to grow from $3.3 trillion to $8 trillion by 2030. India's market likely to increase from $3.5 trillion to $9 trillion, surpassing. We could easily surpass Germany and Japan within 4 to 5 years, and we can become the 3rd largest economy in the world.
Thank you so much. I think a very strong case was made for the India's growth story. Can we have the next speaker with her rebuttals?
आपका कहना है कि चूंकि मैं भारत में रहता हूं, इसलिए मुझे फ्रीडम ऑफ स्पीच का राइट दिया गया है। तो हाँ, आपकी बात सच है, मैं इससे एग्री करता हूं। मगर क्या और अदर कंट्रीज में बोलने की अभिव्यक्ति का अवसर नहीं दिया गया है? आप बात करते हैं कि हमारा देश इमर्जिंग इकोनॉमी है और हम दुनिया की 3rd इकोनॉमी बनने की राह पर बढ़ चले हैं। तो क्या ऐसे आप पहले कह रहे थे कि चाइना और भारत का कंपैरिजन आप नहीं कर सकते हैं? अगर आप देखेंगे तो चाइना को अगर आप सरपाइज करना है तो आपको 2048 तक का वेट करना होगा। तो आखिर ऐसा क्यों है? आखिर हमें इतना वेट करने की रिक्वायरमेंट क्यों पड़ी? आखिर हमने सिस्टम को अडॉप्ट क्यों किया था? अगर हम पहले ही इस चूक को नहीं करते तो आज हम आखिर कहाँ होते, आज सोच सकते हैं। इस स्पीच के पहले आप हमारे हिस्ट्री के बारे में बात कर रहे थे, तो आप मुझे भला ये बताइए किस तरह से हिस्ट्री को आप हमारे करंट टाइम में फिट करना चाहते हैं। मानना कि पुराने ज़माने में आप सिस्टम रहे होंगे, उस टाइम हमारा अलग सब कुछ सिस्टम था, आप उसको आज कैसे अप्लाई करना चाहते हैं। हमारे देश को करंट रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं, हमें करंट रिक्वायरमेंट को पूरा करने के लिए एक नए सिस्टम की रिक्वायरमेंट है, जिसके लिए हमें सारे दुनिया को देखना होगा। आपने पॉपुलिज्म के राइज को देखा, दुनिया में किस तरीके से अलग अलग कंट्रीज में पॉपुलिज्म का राइज हो रहा है। यूएस, पोलैंड, हंगरी ऐसी कंट्री में राइज हो रहा है, तो हम ऐसा क्यों नहीं कर सकते हैं। हमें अपने देश को और देश को बदलने की ज़रूरत है, हमें सिस्टम को बदलना होगा।
Thank you, Gangaram. Can we have the next set of rebuttals and sir rebuttals?
सबसे पहले तो जो चाइना की शक्ति की बात हो रही थी, शी जिनपिंग ने ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक काउंसिल में खुद ही इंडिया को आने वाला सबसे बड़ा लोकतंत्र कहा है और सबसे बड़ी ताकत कहा है। व्लादिमीर पुतिन, बराक ओबामा जैसे बड़े लीडर्स बोल चुके हैं कि इंडिया दुनिया का आने वाला सबसे ताकतवर देश बनने वाला है। एंड आई वुड लाइक टू आस्क, हाउ वुड यू कंसिडर अ नेशन सक्सेसफुल इकोनॉमिकली एंड पर कैपिटा इनकम? अगर हम लोग चाइना की बात करते हैं, किसको पता है कितने लोग मारे जा रहे हैं चाइना में दिखाने के लिए कि इकोनॉमी बढ़ी है। इकोनॉमी बढ़ रही है, देश बढ़ रहा है, पॉपुलेशन कम हो रही है, कोई इसकी बात क्यों नहीं करता है। And now we're talking about China, let's talk about India। यही सब दे रहा है, पर आजादी दे के we can speak here, we can stand here, we can keep our rights, we can even cut short. That's what we're talking about. India is providing us democracy and we're talking about democracy not working. That is democracy. And when we talk about China's economy, किसी ने 24/7 लेबर की कहानी सुनी है? Their people are kept quiet when they have to attend labor shift 24/7 to increase China's economy. Are we doing this over here in India? No. And when we talk about democracy blocking roads, that's what democracy provides. That is giving you rights to take your stand. But it's us people who have flaws that we go and chooses violence practices to cut off democracy. That's what we don't have to do. जैसा मैंने पहले कहा था, हम में दिक्कत है, डेमोक्रेसी में नहीं। सिस्टम इज वर्किंग द वे इट शुड। एंड व्हेन टॉकिंग अबाउट लिटरेसी, have you not heard about new education policy of India? We all are aware of it, well aware of it. We are being stood to take actions on ourselves, to actions and become the best citizens of the country in itself. And I say in front of you guys, it's been 10 years, just wait for 10 years. We'll stand here and we'll talk about how democracy works absolutely perfect in India. And that is going to happen. India is going to become the biggest economy in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for putting the entire case in perspective by pointing out the right examples. Can we now have the next sir rebuttal from the team going against the motion?
डेमोक्रेसी की शुरुआत ग्रीस में हुई थी, ग्रीस में खुद डेमोक्रेसी का पतन हुआ था, और उसके बाद चाइना को एग्जांपल दिया जा रहा है। उस एग्जांपल की तरफ क्यों नहीं जाए जो देश में आज दिख रहा है कि वो विश्व में ऊपर जा रहा है। और जैसे भारत के मॉडल की बात की गई थी हमारे पुराने समय में, हम तो विश्व गुरु थे, ये तो हमने वेस्टर्न मॉडल अपने चिपका दिया, तो हमारा देश कैसे आगे बढ़ेगा। और जैसे हमारी न्यू पॉलिसीज के बारे में बात की गई थी, एक न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी, ये हम अपने गाँव के स्कूलों में जाकर देख सकते हैं कितनी ज़्यादा ये न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी लागू है। मैं अपने हरियाणा और पंजाब के बच्चों से पूछना चाहूंगा कि यहाँ पे कितना रोजगार है। हमारे हरियाणा और पंजाब के बच्चे कनाडा क्यों जा रहे हैं? अगर इतना अच्छा डेमोक्रेसी प्रोवाइड करती तो ये नहीं होता। लिबर्टी, इक्वलिटी की बात की गई है। इक्वलिटी कैसी इक्वलिटी? जहां पे एक वर्ग के पास सबसे ज्यादा पैसा है और दूसरे वर्ग के पास कम है, तो उसमें चाइना क्यों नहीं लिया जाएगा जहां पर एक अच्छी पर कैपिटा इनकम है वहां पे लोगों के पास। और अगला मुद्दा, क्या डेमोक्रेसी के अलावा मॉडल हो नहीं सकते? क्यों नहीं हो सकते मॉडल? हम अपने करंट की जो पॉलिसीज हैं, जो हमारी करंट की गवर्नमेंट्स पॉलिसीज, हमको इन्हें बदलना होगा, और इनको बदलने के बाद हम देश में आगे बढ़ सकते हैं। जो डाटा हमको दिखाए जा रहे हैं, अगर हम ग्राउंड लेवल पे जाके देखते हैं क्या सच में है, हमारे देश ने कितना अब तक सहा है। अगर हम देखें, हमारे देश को आज़ाद हुए 60 साल हो गए, 60 साल तक एक मुद्दा करता गया, गरीबी हटाओ, गरीबी हटाओ। ये मुद्दा देश में क्यों चलता रहा? अगर डेमोक्रेसी में ऐसे चलता तो ये नहीं चलता। धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much. And with that, the rebuttals and sir rebuttals will now come to an end. And now we move to the third round of the debate, which is going to be the question and answer by the moderator, which will be done by one member of the team. And the next member will be concluding the final stance of the team. So can we first have the team member from going for the motion to take the question of the moderator? So my question to the team going for the motion is this, that don't you think the raids on political opponents on the charges of corruption are stifling democracy?
Thanks for the question, ma'am. I would like to defend this question by quoting the famous words by Thomas Fuller. You be ever so high, but the law is always above you. So, law is the fundamental principle in any working democracy. Whether it can be ruling party or the party in the opposition are always subjected to the established laws and regulations that shows the working nature of the democracy. You be without any social discrimination, without looking at your social, stage, we are as a government and the people are bound to obey and look for the laws. So in a parliamentary democracy, there are three institutions. The legislature is always to express the voice of the people. The executive always executes and bound to obey the legislature. Over and above the legislature and the executive, there is judiciary, which is supreme above the lawmaking body and the executive body. So the judiciary always bound to keep them both in the control and in their certainties. So we are all are subjected to the certain law that is established here. Coming back to your questions on ED and CBI, these are law enforcing agencies here. So these agencies is whole responsible for enforcing economic laws and fighting back the economic crimes. So there is nothing in the stifling of democracy here. Actually, it is the working nature of democracy that we practice in our country. It shows transparently to the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have the second speaker give the final concluding stance of the team?
For conclusion, I just want to ask one question from the opponent team. इतना जानना चाहती हूँ कि अगर आपके घर में आग लगती है, आप आग बुझाते हैं कि घर छोड़ के भाग जाते हैं? So that's pretty much it. And how, as Ishaq previously mentioned, democracy stands as the ultimate form of governance within the framework of government for all the human society. There is no superior alternative to democracy, as it represents the greatest gift bestowed upon humanity, enabling us to live with dignity, liberty, fraternity, and profound respect for our fellow humans. To conclude it, Bharat obviously has democracy as a right model, but also Bharat in itself is the mother of democracy. Bharat Loktantra ki janani hai, and also it has its achievements for promoting democracy to the whole world. Before Greek, we have Buddhism as biggest example who brought up the truth of democracy. Greek is just the hideous democracy alluring that was been taken away from India. That was the hideous. इसी झूठ से हमारी आंखें बंद कर दी गई हैं और ये हमसे छुपा दिया गया है कि India was the mother of democracy and it always will be. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's a strong case made by the team going for the motion. Let's invite the team going against the motion first for their question. So my question is as follows. Holding the public to ransom by blocking roads perpetually, do you really think that is freedom of expression that is being, exercised when so many livelihoods are being affected? To give you an example, there was a recent case in the year 2019-2020 when roads were blocked due to a protest in the city of Delhi, where the losses were to the tune of 150 crores. Do we think this is just and do we think this is justified?
थैंक यू फॉर द क्वेश्चन. जैसा कि आप बात कर रहे हैं तो रोड ब्लॉक करना एक फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन का हमारा एक तरीका है. किसी भी डेमोक्रेटिक कंट्री में फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन की बहुत ज़रूरत होती है. हम अपने कंसर्न को रखने में कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होनी चाहिए. बल्कि यहाँ पर मेन मुद्दा ये है, क्रिटिकल एनालिसिस करने की जरूरत हमको ये है कि क्या हम अपने राइट्स का रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी से इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं. सड़कों को ब्लॉक करना, इससे हमारी वास्तव में से हमारी इकोनॉमी को 150 करोड़ का लॉस हुआ था. तो हमको यहाँ पर इस बात पर ध्यान देना जरूरत है कि क्या हम अपने इंडिविजुअल फ्रीडम को और सोसाइटी के वेलफेयर को चेक एंड बैलेंस टोटली बैलेंस करके चला पा रहे हैं। डेमोक्रेसी के हिसाब से हमारे देश में ये नहीं होना चाहिए था, एक एंटी डेमोक्रेटिक प्रोसेस भी है। इसलिए हमें अपने देश में मेंटेन करना होगा कि हमारे देश में फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन को रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी से इस्तेमाल किया जाना चाहिए ताकि हमारे देश का भला हो। धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much. Now can we have the final concluding stance from the team going against the motion?
यहाँ पर आग की बात की गई थी कि अपने घर में आग लगी है वो बुझा नहीं रहे। मैं इस बात का एग्जाम्पल देना चाहूँगा, 70 सालों से भारत में डेमोक्रेसी है, क्या उस आग को बुझा पाए, हमारा सिस्टम ठीक हो पाए? हमारे सिस्टम के अंदर इतने फ्लॉज हैं, अगर मैं वो बताने लग जाऊँ तो दिन कम रह जाएगा। अगर जिस प्रकार भारत के इतिहास की बात की गई, डेमोक्रेसी का जननी माना गया, वो भारत का में डेमोक्रेसी नहीं, वो भारत की फिलोसफी थी, वो भारत का धर्म था, जिसकी वजह से हम इतने ऊपर गए, हम विश्व गुरु बने। मैं एक एग्जाम्पल देना चाहूँगा, आचार्य चाणक्य ने एक प्रोसेस ऑफ सिलेक्शन लाया था। उसमें क्या था कि नेता को हमको चुनना है, हमको उसको चुन के लाना है, बचपन से उसको बैठाना, फिर उस पर जाना है। हमारे में एक सेंट्रलाइज कंट्रोल नहीं था, डिसेंट्रलाइज कंट्रोल था। पंचायत वो गांव को देखती थी, उसके ऊपर हमारा राज्य आता था, एजुकेशन सिस्टम आता था, राजा गए, सब कुछ गए, पर हमारा एजुकेशन सिस्टम बहुत 1000 सालों तक खत्म नहीं हुआ। और उसके बाद अगर हम व्यापार देखें, व्यापार में हमारा 30% तक जीडीपी रहा।
So, with that, the debate comes to an end. Can we have another round of applause for our debaters? अरे, snacks नहीं खाए क्या आप लोगों ने? थोड़ी सी hooting, थोड़ी सी cheering. Well done. So I think, some excellent points were made here. Our debaters made strong points for their cases. Let's see who's going to win. But I would like to take this motion now to our audience joining us here. How many of you think that India should continue as a democracy? Let's have some cheering. Wonderful, wonderful. So now I think the part that all of you have been waiting for since 5 p.m., the interaction with our chief guest. Joining us today, we have Ms. Radhika Gahi ji. She's the CEO and founder of Kind Life. She previously founded Shopclues, which achieved the unicorn status in 2016. Mind you, she was the first woman in India to enter this club. Can we have a round of applause on that?
Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the changes that we've seen in the country over the last 12 years. We started, and while I talk to you about what has happened in India, let me talk a little bit about my journey as well, as somebody who started a startup when startup was not even a word. The concept of ease of doing business was very different. We started the company in the United States. The first company, Shopclues, was started in the United States. We set up a subsidiary here in India. I started a second company with my then husband called Droom. That we started in Singapore in 2015. I'm on to my third company, Kind Life. The first one, when we set up the process and we started the subsidiary, it took 4 months to do that. The second one, it took us 2.5 months. This time around, in 2 days, my company was ready to go. The change is real. The change is visible. You also have to understand, as entrepreneurs, we are possibly one of the toughest audience there is and the biggest critics of the government. So when we say that we see the change, I can tell you the change has to be 100 for us to be happy to a point of 50. And I think that's true for students as well. It is a tough audience that's there. We just ended G20, and I heard some of the debaters talk about Sarke Banthi, how does that work for the economy, etc., etc. There are some things that are an extreme moment of pride for us. This was one of them. I saw my father feel incredibly proud for this. I saw me feel incredibly proud for this. And I saw my 14-year-old feel incredibly proud about this. We executed an impeccable G20. Impeccable. I have been part of some of the G20 summits. The conversations were with us as equals. Please know that we grew up in a country where we were always the developing economy. We are not a developing economy anymore. We are ready to make an impact on the country. Today I want to talk a little bit about startups and what is a startup. I'm assuming everybody knows what a startup is. Shark Tank किसने देखा है? बस फिर इन लोगों को तो कुछ बताने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है. You're all caught up already. How many of you are ready to pitch at Shark Tank? You are? I'm going to listen to your pitch. I have angel invested in about 30 companies. If it's good, I'll write you a check. Done? Okay. And that's a startup, guys. To have the courage to say, yes, I'm doing something, when nobody else lifts their hands. And we saw that happening in the US. We saw people talking about LinkedIn. We saw people talking about Uber, Tesla. We saw people talking about eBay, Amazon, the biggest impact that had ever been done. We also came back to India and saw the change truly happening, which is one of our first startups that went public. Do you guys know? And I can bet you most of you have used them. They went public in the US in 2008. Make My Trip. किसने use किया Make My Trip? बस. That's it. We came to India, and it's all serendipity, right? We came to India on Chutti. We met the Make My Trip team at a party. And I remember meeting Deep and thinking, भाई इसने तो बहुत अच्छी कंपनी बना ली, इंडिया में बना ली, हम लोग वहाँ कैलिफोर्निया में बैठे हुए हैं, काम किए जा रहे हैं. It is possible to do something in India. India is truly changing. And that was it. That was the genesis for us at Shopclues as well. That was the Praramb, literally. And I can tell you, over the last 15 odd years, I have seen the change happen from year to year, decade to decade, day to day, month to month. When we started, what was happening was that we would go talk to investors, and they all wanted to know why we are not doing this in the US, which has a paying population, versus doing it in India, जहाँ पे 1.3 billion लोग हैं, पर paying capacity बहुत कम है. And within 2 to 3 years, I can tell you that the change that happened was that the 1.3 billion people, and this is especially for the people who were pro-democracy right there, the 1.3 people were not being looked at as a burden, they were being looked at as an opportunity. The same thing that was a problem became a benefit for us. Our pitch at Shopclues changed exactly the same way. And that was the beginning of the reforms, the beginning of the startup story at India. Firstly, it was possible कि technology से real change आ सकता है. हमें लगा था हम इंडिया आएंगे, company start करेंगे, and it'll be like the field hockey stick. It'll take us a little bit of teething trouble, and then we'll just take off like that. We landed up being more and more like the Canadian hockey stick, flat, 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 and then it took off. And do you know what is the catalyst? What was one of the biggest reform that made the change possible? Very different generation. But there was a time जब लोग अपने फ़ोन पे डेटा ऑन नहीं करते थे क्योंकि डेटा महंगा होता था. Jio was a big one. Jandhan, the Jam Trinity that the government launched. For some of you, that might just be a phrase. For us, that was what built the business. That's what got people online. Today, UPI is being used across the world. When it launched, there were questions about whether it will be successful in any way or form. So reforms that had to be done were very, very, very significant, even before Startup India was announced. That was the biggest thing. For me, this is a moment of extreme pride. I was on the stage and Prime Minister Modi was listening to me talk about what my aspirations for my country were. And, you know, it doesn't matter if you're for the government, you're against the government. That is a sense of huge pride when your words are being listened to by your leadership and when they are ready to take your feedback. Modi ji started this evening, this was a Saturday evening, and we started at about 7 o'clock. And I remember he started by saying कि अगर Saturday शाम को आप लोग 7 बजे मेरा भाषण सुनने आए हैं, तो आप लोग entrepreneurs ही हो सकते हैं. पर मुझे लगता है अगर 7 बजे, Saturday शाम को 7 बजे आप भाषण सुनने आए, तो you are ready to make a change. Now, I saw the enthusiasm when a lot of your speakers came on board today. And I have to tell you, I miss this. I miss the energy of youth, the belief that anything is possible. I also have to say that I was expecting a lot more people to put their hands up and say we have business ideas than just one. Because that's what our country should be about. Startups are important. Businesses are important. And a shout out to all the women in the room. Bhai, thoda sa ideas lao. The time has come. Really anything is possible. You don't have to limit yourself. Unicorns. Does everybody know what a unicorn is? What is it? 1 billion की वैल्यूएशन. बिल्कुल. जब हमने 2011 में Shopclues शुरू किया था, तब Make My Trip was successful, Flipkart था, and they were all valued at 200, 400 odd million. There was no unicorn in India. And we didn't think, because there's no other unicorn in the country, you don't think that you'll become a unicorn as well. But it happened. 2013, Mu Sigma became a unicorn. Flipkart, InMobi, InfoEdge, Make My Trip, Zoho, Renew, Hike, Shopclues, Paytm, Quicker, Zomato, Ola, Snapdeal. Have you guys used services of most of these companies? So together, the kind of valuation, the kind of impact they've made on our country, can you also see yourself working at these companies? And look at what happened in 2021 and 22. Guys, मुझे पता है तुम लोग मेरी इंडस्ट्री के नहीं हो. Please, a big hand. Look at the value that was created here. How many unicorns? Lots of data. But the fact is, वो वाला date है ना, 16 January 2016. उस दिन ये announce हो गया कि तुम company 2 दिन में बना सकते हो. And India used to have the license Raj. मतलब कुछ नहीं होता था. I don't know if there are any government officers here or not, but Really कुछ नहीं होता था. और वो really change हो गया है. You know, half the time I'm a non-believer in a lot of these. But this is a change that I've seen. This happened. Regulatory reforms happened. You know, one of the reforms that they made, that was very important for the startup culture to kind of grow and prosper in the country. They made it easier for companies to fail. You could shut down companies easier. पहले अगर तुम्हारी कंपनी बनी नहीं तो तुम्हारे गले पे टंगी रहती थी. मतलब you were just all your life working on figuring out how you can shut that. Your risk appetite went up. It became easier for people to take risks, to start new things. So while making it easy to start is important, making it easier to fail is also very important. And that's what the government did for us. Investment has become easier. I'll also tell you a personal story in investments over here. When we started Shopclues, I must have pitched to about, 500 odd investors. And, okay, I have to stay towards the middle of the stage. But 500 odd investors. And out of that, I think 2 or 3 women, that's about it. Now, when I go for events, my finance minister is a woman, Ms. Sitaraman, and I meet many, many more women on VCs as well. Because it has become easier from the government side to be able to start new funds that are focused on women, start new funds that are focused on agri-tech, start new funds that are focused on defense. The government has made it easier to do that, and we've not seen this kind of a push in any of the other countries anywhere. Most countries push their startup ecosystem based on tax benefits. We've made it easier from a regulatory process, which was one of the biggest things that was holding us back. There is the Startup Learning Program, Startup India Hub. No angel tax. Angel tax was a very big problem. Some of it continues to be there, which is being some legacy impact is there that's being resolved. But hopefully that gets a lot better as well. मेरे हिसाब से तो सबसे easy था भाई funding support for startups and innovation-focused programs for students. Have you guys seen any innovation-focused programs? How many of you have heard about the Atal Tinkering Lab? Did your schools have it? Have you actually tinkered in the lab? Yes? Somebody said yes. So I'm a mentor for a couple of these, and I think it is the ability that the Atal Tinkering Labs, the Atal Innovation Labs provide the students today at so many schools across the country is phenomenal. The change is real, the change is here for us, and a lot of innovative ideas are coming out of this. I go to schools in Delhi where I hear business ideas from kids as young as in grade 6. They talk about building, whether that is in drones, whether that's in robotics, whether that's in 3D printing. Dimag khul jata hai when you have the resources. I'll go back to the same thing. We're not a developing nation anymore. We're not a poor nation. We're a nation that is actually opening up its resources to our young, to our students. So incentives are being provided, ease of doing business, tax benefits, exit options I've already spoken about, infrastructure, the startup policy. All of these sound easy on paper, but if any of you go out and start a business, you'll realize how important all of these are, and these literally become roadblocks for us to do anything big with our life. talk about incubators and accelerators. Have you applied to any of the incubators? Check चाहिए ना तुम्हें तो जवाब देना पड़ेगा. हाँ किया था ना. तो 2011 में जब हमने शॉपक्लूज शुरू किया था कोई इंक्यूबेटर नहीं था, कोई एक्सेलरेटर नहीं था. आज IIM बैंगलोर में एक एक्सेलरेटर है जिसमें से every year about 150 women owned enterprises, consumer tech enterprises come out. There are multiple accelerators around the world. The government has a fund of funds that enables us to be able to fund those as well. IITs में research parks बन रहे हैं. Incubators are in schools, but they are also being sponsored by SIDBI. They are being sponsored by a lot of the government-focused initiatives. By the way, guys, please, I hope I leave here with a lot more people aspiring to be entrepreneurs. It's a lot easier in today's generation. Make the attempt. हर रोज घर जाके ना चार आइडियाज लिखा करो जो कर सकते हो. And at the end of the month or at the end of the year, go through it and figure out which one you can work on. Because it's truly possible. Truly, truly. This list, ignore everything. This list. These are investors. Just the VCs in our country have gone up at least 100 times over the last 14 years. People would be afraid to invest in India. Now, sometimes I feel there are more funds than founders. There are so many funds that are supporting you. Startup has become a way of life, not just something that the rich and privileged do. Because if you go and look at the life of each one of our startup founders, you'll realize that none of us came out rich and privileged. Sahil and I were talking about it earlier. When I was growing up, I would ask my parents for anything, and they'd say, "Hum Tata Birla thodi hain." But ab to aur bhi ho gaya na. You can be a Flipkart founder, you can be a Snapdeal founder, you can be a Zomato founder. Wealth is not limited to a few. If you can create it, it can be yours. I've spoken about agri-startups already. Drones. Garud. Anybody knows about drone technology? What's happening there? There you go. Idea Forge. Garud. It is phenomenal that what we are doing in the drone technology is ahead of a lot of things that are happening worldwide. Because we've been known, India also had its whole evolution. We were a country of traders, so it was assumed that any kind of a company that comes out of India is going to be the eBay of India, the Amazon of India. Now we are coming out with startups that are from India for the world. Space tech, so much happening in space tech right now. Galaxy Eye, which is a space tech startup, that has unveiled India's first high-resolution aerial drone startup. And it is one of the first of its kind in the world. When I read this, it makes me incredibly proud. It took us about 5 years to create a unicorn in India. We were the 4th unicorn in India. Now unicorns, the median age is 5.7, but I know that there are companies like Bharat Pay that have become unicorns in less than 2 to 3 years. There's another one that's one of the youngest unicorn. One more that you guys probably use. Who has credit cards here? Great job. Cred. Within 2 to 3 years, they are startups. They are unicorns. और ये सब बहुत ही phenomenal change है. ये हो नहीं रहा था पहले. Today we have more than 100 unicorns in the country and about 100 more that are waiting to be unicorns. We've raised a total capital of nearly $100 billion in a country where FDI, foreign direct investment, was difficult but has changed completely. We've been able to raise $100 billion and created a combined valuation of about $350 billion. And I feel that this data is slightly dated. This number has gone up significantly. The top sector that has created value has been e-commerce, but fintech is catching up very, very soon, only because of one phenomena, which is UPI. आप सब UPI use करते हैं? That's technology. Paytm? There you go. That's life-changing. So we sometimes forget the impact that startups have on our day-to-day lives. So when I already told you that when we started Shopclues, the question that we got was that why are you moving to India? India mein to bahut mushkil hai to build anything. And that era has passed. Now there are people who are US citizens, Americans, Israelis who come to India to do their startups. 1 out of every 10 unicorns globally have been born in India right now. And I can tell you that this number is going to go up to 50% very, very soon. Some more just data out there. One data that I'm not very pleased with, only 46% of startups have at least one woman director, but less than 4% of startup money goes to women-led startups. So less than 4% of venture capital goes to women-led startups. That number has to change, and it will, because we have incentives to be able to change that. Just a stark comparison of how the funding has changed completely. We became a unicorn the year after this. तब तक सिर्फ 5 बिलियन आया था. अब नंबर आपके सामने है कितना आ चुका है. तब हम मुश्किल से 350-400 startups थे. अब every nook and corner has a startup, and that is again, I think, just the ability to start easy and the ability to fail easy. That is pretty phenomenal. Guys, think of ideas. Become entrepreneurs. It is the best time in our country to become an entrepreneur. At your age, at my age. And this has not been true in any other part of the world. In any other part of the world. Train yourself to become a good employee, but train yourself better to become a good founder. It is not difficult, and it is not impossible. Demography of startup founders, we've already talked about the fact that we have fewer women entrepreneurs and more encouragement for women entrepreneurs to be able to do startups. And आप लोग तो यहाँ पे है ना, 20 to 25 years old. Is that right? That's your demographic? 18 too. Okay, let's add the 0.3%. Zepto, guys, क्या age है पता है ना? There you go. So please, my job today is to leave here making sure that you all understand that being an entrepreneur is an option for you all. The country is ripe for it. Entrepreneurs literally come in all ages, all shapes and sizes. You don't have to be an engineering graduate or an MBA. You can be any of those and do something that makes an impact. the impact is not just in terms of the money that you make, but the impact is more in terms of the lives that you touch as well. Nine years, I have seen the change. For me, this is not rhetoric. This has changed my life. I'm on to my third startup in a country which has been able to implement all of this. I've spoken about nearly each one of these individually, and I'll leave this here for you to read. But any ecosystem that gets support from the government, whether that's a government that is a democracy or a government that's not a democracy, that has to sponsor, that has to prosper. Today's day and era, I think it is a time for India to shine. Truly our Amrit Kal. You guys are in a very different country that we were in when we were growing up, and it is up to you to make the most out of the opportunity. I want to wish you all good luck. I'm happy to take any questions, but please tell me how many of you will at least try to do a startup. Oh my God. Thank you. Thank you.
Can we have a huge round of applause?
सही समय है